grade 12 learners, welcome to today's business studies lesson. My name is Tidi Sotlaka, and this lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. Today we look into business studies, and we are focusing on the grade 12 revision, and we are revising on paper 1. And the main topic we deal with directly is business operations. So we will be looking into strategies on how you could pass your business operations. This is your question 3, question 4, and question 6. As we proceed, learning outcomes. By the end of this unit, you should be able to know the following: the structure of the paper. You should also know the main topics that are assessed in paper 1, although we are focusing on business operation. You should also be in a position to do interpretation of section B and section C questions. Then, let's start with the first part of our lesson. We look into the structure of the paper. You should be knowing by now that you have section A, B, and C. Now, I'm here to tell you to say under your section A, you will then have what we call compulsory short questions, which are allocated 30 marks. And then with that 30 marks, you'll be having 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. And the 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 will be assessing business environment and business operations. And then as we proceed, we'll have what? A multiple choice under 1.1. And then choose the correct word from the box or list will be 1.2. And then 1.3 will be matching items, meaning items under column A and column B. Then the mark allocation is 30 and the time you should spend there is 20 minutes. Now as we proceed, we then look into the structure of the question paper. So when we look into the structure of the question paper, now we are looking into the section B. Section B, we will look into the idea that under section B, you have 80 marks allocated there, and the time you should spend is 70 minutes, meaning 35 minutes for each question. And the instruction at the beginning of section B will be choose any 2 questions. So when they are saying choose any 2 questions, you'll choose any 2 questions between question 2, question 3, or question 4. Now, question 2 will consist of business environment, and then question 3 will consist of business operations, and then when you look into question 4, it is a combination of both business environment and business operations. Hence, they are allocated 20 marks, which makes 40 to be the total. And we call these questions miscellaneous questions. So that's your section B. It's a very, very important section because it is the one that is going to assist you to achieve your distinction. As we proceed, we look into section C, which is the last section in your question paper. Here we are assessing what we call a essay type questions. And the instruction at the beginning of section C is that choose 1 question. And the time, the mark allocated is 40 and the time allocated is 30 minutes. Now, you have 2 questions there. You are expected to choose only 1. So you have question 5, which will have an essay that will assess subtopics under the main topic we call the business environments. And then you also have question 6, which will be now an essay that will assess the main topics, the main topic we call business operation and all the subtopics under the business operations. You are expected to only choose 1. Now let's start with the main topics again, just to remind you that in paper 1 we have business environments and business operations. And you should know that under business environment you will find the questions that directly assess business environment under question 2 together with question 4, because I said question 4 is miscellaneous, and question 6. Remember, in the question 4, you're only going to be assessed for 20 marks. But business operations, we're going to have question 3, remember, with question 4 together with question 6. And what is important here is that, remember, we also have question 1. Question 1 will assess both the business environment and the business operation, which will be similar for question 4. The question 4 as well will assess both business operations and business environments. Now let us proceed. The subtopics that you find for paper 1. You have the following under the business environment: the impact of recent legislation on business business, which is taught in term 1, and then you also have business strategies. With business strategies, they are also taught in term 1. Then you have business sectors and their environments, which was taught in term 2. Then when you look into business operations, you have human resources function, which is taught in term 1, and you also have quality of performance, which is taught in term 2. So those are your subtopics for paper 1, and you should be knowing that human resource function and the quality of performance, they will then be assessed under business environment, business operations, I mean to say. And then the impact of recent is together with business strategies and business sectors and their environments, these will then be business environment. Let us start with the interpretation of questions, and I will start our lesson with what? The paper 1 typical essay questions. Looking into question 6, because the focus is on business operations. So when we talk of business operations, you should be knowing that we have only 2 subtopics under the business operations. This is your human resource function and your quality of performance. What does this mean, or what does it entail, or what does it tell you? It tells you that an essay can either be human resource function or quality of performance. And what is the strategy? Study both, so that if an essay is quality of performance, you get the marks. If an essay is human resource function, you get the marks. So that is the strategy. And remember, what will happen is that you are going to be asked questions on human resource function and quality of performance under question 3, together with question 4. And question 4 will be allocated 20 marks because this is miscellaneous. And then here you'll have 40 marks. And remember, in question 6, you'll also have 40 marks. So all you need is to master these 2 topics, and then you are in a position to then write for 40 in section C, for 60 in section B, and then you also have another 15 marks in question 1, which is section A. So what is important is that go and master the 2, which is human resource function and quality of performance. Then you are in a position to get your marks and pass and get to the university, because that's the goal. And then as we move now, we look into a typical exam question. What has been assessed in the previous papers or in the past papers? Now, you have question 6, which will then assess business operations. Now, you have this box here. We call this box a preamble. A preamble is just giving you an idea of what the essay you are going to be writing is about. So hence we have Supreme Enterprise has opened a new manufacturing department. Deirdre, the human resource manager, followed the recruitment procedure before advertising the vacancy. Successful candidates were inducted and attractive fringe benefits were offered. Supreme also had now implemented the salary determination methods to pay successful candidates. So now, this is not giving you any answer. They are just outlining some of the subtopics, but there's no answer, meaning you may not quote anything from the preamble or this box, because should you quote it and use it as your introduction or conclusion, we will mark you and give you an R, which is referring to repetition, to say you have repeated a question or a source of a question in section C. We only quote for motivation and quote from the scenario in section B. In section C, the focus will only be the questions. So the question is, write an essay on the following human resource activities in which you include the following aspects. Number 1, you outline aspects that must be included in an induction program, maybe. That could be the question. Another one is, and it's important that you understand what is induction. Induction talks to introducing new employees. So when we are saying programs, we are talking about what could be included in the program of induction. And then we also look into explaining the recruitment procedure that Supreme Enterprise has to follow, and also discuss the 2 salary determination methods that are applicable according to the human resource function, and then advise Supreme Enterprise on the impact of fringe benefits on the business for 40 marks. So this then makes your work to be easy, because you should know that your essay is supposed to have an introduction, it should have an introduction, and you need to have 2 points under your introduction. Then your essay should also have what? A conclusion. And you should have 1 point under your conclusion, and make sure that in each sentence or in each question you have at least 5 points, or that way you are safe and you will then be able to obtain your marks. And remember that in business studies we also have marks for how you have structured your essay. If your essay has an introduction and you attempt to write something under your introduction, you will obtain 1 mark, whether the attempt is correct or incorrect. Then you move to your subheading. If you include all your subheadings, you'll receive 1 mark under analysis. And if you obtain 16 marks and above, you will also receive what? 1 mark for just analyzing the essay properly and showing a good understanding. So basically you have 3 free marks. And then if your essay and everything that you wrote in the content is relevant to the question, you also obtain 2 marks for synthesis, because your essay is relevant to the question that has been asked. Be clear to say here, when we talk about synthesis, we are talking about the relevancy of the question, not the relevancy of the topic. To say you are talking about human resource. So it doesn't mean when the question is saying discuss 2 salary determination methods, you can then talk about the differences between job description and specification. If you do that, then we give you -S, because the question was asking about salary determination methods, but your response is based on the job analysis components, which is job description and job specification. So this is how you are supposed to interpret your essay. As we move, we look into another typical essay, which can be on what now? The main topic as well, because it's question 6, will be business operation, but this time we'll be looking into a typical essay question on quality of performance. So the business implements quality assurance in order to what now? To produce quality products. So some managers believe that this can be achieved by focusing on quality control and quality assurance. So there's no answer there. They are not telling you what quality control is and what quality assurance is. So they're just telling you that the business can achieve quality by implementing the quality control and assurance. And then others argue that the financial and production function plays an important role in achieving business objectives. There's no answer as well, because remember, in our curriculum we talk about the quality indicators, or how each business function can contribute to the success, but we are not seeing any of that. It's just a summary to say these 2 functions are important in achieving the business objectives. And then businesses agree that good quality management systems will yield fruitful what? Results for the business. So as well there, you don't have an answer. It's just an idea to say you should know that your essay will have a good quality management system. You should know that your essay will talk about financial and production function, and you should know that your essay will also include quality control and assurance. And that way you are being guided to say this is what we are talking about, and it helps you to remember what the essay and some of the notes you were studying. So the instruction then says to you, write an essay on quality of performance in which you include the following aspects. Now, this is what you focus on. 1, you elaborate on the meaning of quality. Number 2, you distinguish between quality control and quality assurance. Then you explain how the business or function contributes to the quality of performance of a business. Then you also look into the financial function and the production function to say how is these functions contributing to the quality performance of the business. Then the last part will be advise businesses on the benefits of a good quality management system. Then you are safe. You interpret it, you include your introduction and your conclusion. Now let us look into subtopics for question 3. You have your human resources and your quality of performance. Let's see how do you go about this. I will show you what the examination guideline is saying, and I will also show you typical questions to say how do you go about answering such questions. Let's start. Typical questions on question 3. Now we have human resource activities. In summary, these are the activities in human resource. You have recruitment, which talks to attracting suitable candidates for a vacant post. Then you also have selection to say after you have recruited, then you have to select because people will be attracted based on the job description and specification on the advert. Therefore, you are looking into what? Selecting the best candidate. After you have selected, then you have the responsibility to introduce the new employee, which will then fall under the activity that is done under the induction program. Then you move to placement. With placement, that's where you are assigning a job or a task or a responsibility to an employee, and you are also checking their strengths and weaknesses against the requirements of the position to say these are the strengths of the worker and this is what they need to have for them to cope with the position. Hence, we call this placement. Then we have salary determination, which will help the human resource manager and the business to understand how they are going to pay their worker, and they will also look into aspects such as, are they paying the workers using piecemeal or time related? With piecemeal, we know that they are being paid using what now? The amount of what now? You should know this to say, when you are being paid using the piecemeal salary determination methods, the business will pay you based on the amount of work you have produced or units you have produced. But time related, you are paid based on the time you spent in the workplace. As we proceed, fringe benefits. When we talk to fringe benefits, we are talking to the advantages now for a business that comes with offering more benefits beyond the salary. If your workers, you pay them 20,000 every month, but you are also contributing 5,000 towards their medical aid and also maybe contributing 5,000 to their pension fund. So that way you are offering more. So we are talking about the advantages when we look into fringe benefits. And then we also have legislation, because the human resource manager is now dealing with workers, and we know that in South Africa we have labor laws that implicate the business to say they need to comply with those laws. It's important for the human resource manager to know how to deal with the legislation, because it does have an impact in the operations of the business. As we proceed now, let's start with the examination guideline and each activity, and you should know how you are expected to be assessed in that particular subtopic or human resource activity. The first activity will be recruitment. You should know that you can have what we call a recruitment procedure, which explains what the human resource manager should do when they are in the process of recruiting. Hence, it says the human resource manager should prepare the job description and also prepare the job specification, and also choose the method of recruitment, which can either be internal or external. So the question type you can get there is that the examiner may require you to quote from the scenario and explain the procedure, which would be a direct. So this would be a direct question when they say explain the recruitment procedure, but when they say quote from the scenario, it is indirect, because you're going to be quoting from the scenario to show that you understand what the procedure is. And then they can also ask you to identify now the methods of recruitment, which is either internal or external, from a what now? From a scenario. And they can be a low order question, which is what I consider to be your 3.1. Your 3.1 can say, name the examples of what now? Sources, or name examples or sources of internal or external, maybe for 4 marks. This can be a typical 3.1 question. And then another one can be identify the method of recruitment from the scenario above. So it can either be internal or external. So in the scenario, if you see a newspaper, you should know that this is what? This is external recruitment. Because of the newspaper will be seen by everyone. But if you see an office notice board, for instance, you should know that this is internal, because it will only be seen, that advert will only be seen by people inside the business. And then another question from the scenario can be a follow-on question, whereby they say identify or analyze the impact of the source of recruitment identified in the scenario above. Then you can also have components of job analysis, whereby you are required to identify them from the scenario, or you are required to what now? Code them from the scenario. And then you can also be required to differentiate between job description and job specification, which are the components of job analysis. Do not confuse it. The components of job analysis include job description and job specification. And I said you can be required to differentiate. In a section B question, it would be 4, but in an essay, it can be 8 marks. Now, as we proceed, we look into the selection activity. Again, we will have the selection procedure where the human resource manager has to select the best candidate. The question that we can get there is code from the scenario, and it can also be a direct question whereby they say explain the selection procedure. However, you can also have another direct type of a question whereby you have to talk about screening as part of selection. So this will focus on the part where the business is screening their candidates' CVs and information. The question you can get there is just a direct question where they say, explain screening as part of selection. Then you can also have a very popular question under the human resource activity would be about the interview. They can ask you maybe to explain the purpose of the interview or the role of the interviewer and interviewee. However, the question can be quote from the scenario, the purpose or the role of the interviewer or the interviewee. And you should be able to explain the role of both the interviewer and interviewee. And keep in mind that the interviewer will have a role before the interview takes place. Before the interview takes place. Then, as we proceed, selection activity also has a subtopic or a subheading called employment contract, wherein you should be able to know what now to name contents of the employment contract. You should also be in a position to explain the requirements of an employment contract, to say what makes a contract to be legal, wherein you talk about both the employer and the employer, and the employer and the employee must sign the employment contract, and no party may make changes to the employment contract without the other one. And the idea that the employment contract may not be in conflict with any requirements of the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. Then another subheading is termination of employment contract. The employee should know what could terminate the employment contract. This can be in a scenario as well, or it can be a direct question where they say explain the termination of employment contract, and then or they can say quote, because it doesn't have headings, so you can be expected to quote here. To quote, and when you are quoting now, you should know that you are quoting the direct sentences from the scenario. And then as we proceed, we have induction. With induction, you can be asked to know the purpose, the aspects of induction or included in the induction program, and the benefits of induction. The question can be quote from the scenario, any of the induction aspects, or be able to explain the purpose and aspects together with the benefits of induction, and that way you will be covered with your induction. There's only three aspects: the purpose, aspects included in an induction program, and the benefits of induction. And we should not confuse the purpose with the benefits. With the benefits, we're talking about the advantages of having induction or having done induction to the new employee who was just employed. To say this employee, because they were introduced to the working environment, to their senior managers, to their immediate colleagues, and they know who is their supervisor, then this employee is then in a better position to improve quality of performance or improve performance in the workplace. They are able to settle in quickly, and it will reduce anxiety. So that helps the employee to settle in very fast in the business. Then we have placement. With placement, it is direct. You just have to know the procedure and be in a position to identify the placement from a multiple choice or a section A question, because that's where normally it is assessed. The content is not much on placement. So that's why most of the time it is assessed in your section A. This can be 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.3. Then as we proceed, we also have the importance of skills development here. You can be required to quote from the scenario, because we're talking about why skills development is important. And remember, you will not talk about productivity here. Here you just talk about why is it important to the workers. That's why it talks about the workers feeling valued. It talks about the business showing that they appreciate their employees. Hence, they are improving their skills. So we are looking into the perspective of the employee only to say how would they take the importance of skills development. Then, be able to explain, which is a direct question, be able to explain or discuss or advise on the importance of skills development. As we proceed, we look into salary determination. With salary determination, you should know that we have two types of salary determination methods: piecemeal or time-related. You should be in a position to identify from the scenario or differentiate. So the question will not say quote, it will say identify. Then you should also be in a position to explain the link between salary determination and the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. Now, be in a position to remember this part, because when it is assessed in most cases and from the diagnostic analysis 2023 and the others, it is always a problem. You forget this part because you want to focus on the recruitment, selection, and induction and the role of the interview. But look into the link between salary determination and the basic conditions. Why? Because it talks about what is the link, what is the law saying about salary determination. So you should look into this content and also quote from the scenario and explain. You should be expected to know that the question that can come here, it can say quote from the scenario, and it can also say explain the link between salary determination methods and the BCEA. And then the importance of skills development, we looked into that. Then the fringe benefits. You should know that the first one can be name. The question type can be name or list examples of fringe benefit: medical aid, pension fund, allowances, be in a position to name. This is another 4 marks question which can require of you to name. So it's just your 3.1. Then another question you can have there is the impact of fringe benefit, whereby you analyze the impact. Here you're looking into the positives and the negatives. Then fringe benefits required by law. You should know that the fringe benefit required by law is the unemployment insurance fund. Just be in a position to explain or outline what it stands for and what do we mean by that and the contributions. Then the last part would be the implications of legislations on human resource. Here you should know what labor relations and how labor relations would implicate the business, how Skills Development Act would implicate the business, and how Employment Equity together with the Basic Conditions of Employment Act would implicate the business. So you just have to know how to explain or recommend, which is a similar way of responding. These are just direct questions. So be in a position to explain at least 4 points for each so that you become safe. Then let's look into the typical exam questions. I will have your questions first for you, and then after that we look into the what? We look into the approach. 3.1 will require you to read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. You have Thokoza Cash and Carry, TCC. Thokoza Cash and Carry is looking for a supervisor to manage workers. The vacancy was advertised in the local newspaper. Very important. We underline that one. Then the human resource manager had to prepare for the selection procedure. The first question, 3.1.1, identify the type of recruitment method that TCC has used to advertise the vacancy. Quote from the scenario above to support your answer for 3 marks. So here, as I said, you look into the keyword. They have implemented and they have used a recruitment method. And we should know that the recruitment method can either attract inside or outside the business. But where do we know that this is inside or outside? We check our scenario, because they say now identify the type of recruitment method that TCC used to advertise the vacancy and quote from the scenario above to support your answer. So then this is to say the vacancy has or was advertised in the local newspaper. So we check to say, who will see the newspaper? Is it only people who are inside the business, or everyone as well who's outside? So the truth of the matter is that people who are outside are going to see the advert and they're going to apply, and a lot of applications will come from outside. So the answer here becomes external recruitment. So the answer here is supposed to be external recruitment. And then a follow-on question is discuss the impact of the recruitment method identified in question 3.1.1, and then explain the correct selection procedure to the management of TCC, and then suggest the role of the interviewer and the interviewee during the interview for 6 marks. Now, as I said, the answer here is supposed to be what? External recruitment. The vacancy was advertised in the what? Local newspaper. Look, where do I take this? I quote it as it is. The vacancy was advertised in the local newspaper. So what did I do? I quoted in full. Please, grade 12s, make sure that you quote in full so that you don't lose your marks. You cannot just quote this part You cannot just quote a local newspaper and think is the correct one. No, you're gonna get it incorrect. Make sure that you quote it in full from where the sentence starts to where the sentence ends, which is guiding you through the full stop. So make sure that you quote in full and you get your 3 marks over there. Then we look into the impact. When we look into the impact, what are the positives of attracting candidates from outside? New candidates, the advantage is that when you use external, the new candidates bring new talents or ideas into the business. That's number one. Number two, there's a larger pool of candidates to choose from. That's correct as well. So that's two, and then that's two as well. But negatives then become the idea that information on the CVs or references may not be reliable. People might be lying from what they have provided or what they wrote in their CVs. So new candidates generally take longer to adjust in their new working environment. So they take longer, and anything that is time consuming is wasting the business time. So that's how you'd get your 8 marks there. Then we move to their selection procedure, where and which is the correct selection procedure. Now, as we explain the correct selection procedure to management of TCC, this is how you explain it. To say the selection procedure will include receiving documentation. For example, this is the application forms and sorting it according to the criteria of the job. That's number one. Then number two, evaluate CVs and create shortlist or screen applicants. So that's one even for that one. Then another one is check information on the CVs and contact references. Then another one is conduct preliminary sifting interviews to identify applicants who are suitable or who are not suitable for the job. So you identify then who is not suitable, although they have met the requirements. So sometimes, yes, you meet the requirements, but you are not suitable. Then suggest the role of the interviewer and interviewee in the interview. So this is the role now. The role of the interviewer and interviewee during the interview. So we'll start with the interviewer. What is the role of the interviewer? Is to allocate the same amount of time to each candidate. That's correct. It is also to introduce the members of the interviewing panel to each candidate or interviewee. And then it is also to make the interviewee feel at ease. And as we move on, it is to explain the purpose of the interview to the panel and the interviewee. So this is the role of the organizer, the person who was responsible for preparing for the interview. Hence we say their role during. As the interviewer, you will then allocate the same amount of time. You will introduce members of the interviewing panel to each candidate, make the interviewee feel at ease as they come in, explain the purpose of the interview to the panel and the interviewee, and then do not misinform or mislead the interviewee. As we proceed, we also look into the role of the interviewee during. Now, the interviewee is the candidate that has applied for a job. Now, when you are looking into that, greet the interviewer by name with a solid handshake and a friendly smile. This is the candidate. Greeting the interviewer by the solid handshake, and a friendly smile. Then the interviewee will have to listen carefully to the question before responding. So as the candidate who's looking for a job, listen carefully to the question before they respond. And then make eye contact and have a good body posture or body language. They need to have a proper body language as they are listening to the questions, and make eye contact with the panel or the interviewer. They should also show confidence and have a positive attitude and also be assertive. And then they should also ask for clarity-seeking questions. So all those are applicable, and all those will then be correct as the role of the interviewee during the interview. Then we then proceed to another type of question whereby we look into the induction program. The question is to read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. 3.2.1 now says to you, quote 2 aspects from the scenario that Tadeo included in his induction program. Tadeo's induction program, Tadeo has developed an induction program to or for newly appointed employees. They are usually taken on a tour of the premises and introduced to senior management and colleagues. 3.2.1, quote 2 aspects from the scenario that Thato included in his induction program for 2 marks. Then another question is explain other 3 aspects that should be included in the induction program. That's a follow on. And then 3.2.3, advise Thato on the benefits of induction program for 8 marks. Now let us look into how you go about it. This was a very straight and clear question. You don't need to lose marks here. You simply quote the induction program and aspects that are included in your programs, and they are very clear here. Number 1 would be they are usually taken on a tour of the premises, and number 2 would be they are introduced to senior management and colleagues. So that would be they are usually taken to a tour of the premises. That's 1. And then another one is they are introduced to senior management and colleagues. That's 2. Then we look into other programs. Other programs can include introducing the employees to safety regulations and rules, and it can be again the overview of the business, and it can also be information about the business or products offered. Then it can also be discussion of the employment contract. Remember, because you have obtained the 6, we write this as max. It can also be discussion of employees' benefits. Then as we proceed, we look into the benefits of induction. Number 1, the benefits of induction. If the employee was introduced, it will increase the quality of performance and productivity in the business. Number 2, it allows the new employee to settle in quickly and work more effectively. Then number 3 is it ensures that the new employees understand the rules and restrictions in the business. And then another one is that new employees may establish relationships with fellow employees at different levels. So as we can see, the settling in quickly and working effectively is an advantage, it's a benefit for the business, because it means the employee will then shall have adapted very fast. It ensures that the new employees understand rules and restrictions, meaning they will not make mistakes or anything that is against the rule, which is a benefit to the business. And the new employee may establish relationships, and as they establish relationships with fellow employees at different levels, they are then in a better position to also be productive, because they know how to deal with the employees or colleagues, which is very, very important. Then employees may be familiar with the organizational structure, for example, who is their supervisor or their low-level managers. Then we move to another typical exam question. 3.3, read the aspects below or the scenario below and answer questions that follow. You have Impala Construction. Impala Construction advertised a vacancy for a production manager. The successful applicants will receive remuneration packages, which includes medical aid, pension fund, and a housing allowance. The management of Impala Construction invited shortlisted candidates to attend the interview. Now, name 3 examples of fringe benefits offered by Impala Construction in the scenario above. Then 3.3.2, discuss the impact of the fringe benefits on the what or for Impala Construction as a business for 6 marks. Now let us look into the other one. 3.3, explain the salary determination methods that the business could apply to remunerate their employees for 6 marks, and then recommend the legal requirements of the employment contract for 6 marks. So what is the solution there? Very quick. It is very straight to the point. The question is saying name. So you should check from the scenario and check where are these aspects that you have to name, and what are these aspects. These aspects include fringe benefits. They expect you to name only 3 fringe benefits. They're not saying quote the sentence, but they're saying name. So you should name the medical aid, you should name the pension fund, and the housing allowance. And the management of there's no answer after that. So the answer is supposed to be medical aid 1, pension fund 2, and housing allowance 3. Then we look into discussing the fringe benefits and the impact, which is the positives and negatives. Number 1 is that it improves productivity, resulting in higher profitability. Attractive fringe benefits packages may result to higher employee retention. So because they are attractive, they will then do what? Attract and make employees to stay longer. Retention, keeping employees longer in a business. And then it increases the employees' loyalty as they're willing to go an extra mile. Then as we proceed, businesses save money as benefits are tax deductible. Then as we move on, what are the negatives now? What are the negatives? And remember, this is salary beyond your salary. So if you are receiving 20,000 as your salary, the business maybe is also contributing 10,000 more in a form of fringe benefits by giving you medical aid, by giving you your pension fund. So this means you are then earning 30,000 in total as a fringe benefit. But when you look into the negatives, is that businesses that cannot offer fringe benefits fail to attract skilled employees, unfortunately, because employees want the benefit, and then it can create conflict or lead to corruption if allocated unfairly. So if some employees realize that there's other employees that receive more benefits, that can lead to conflict in the workplace. Then fringe benefits are an additional cost, as you can see, 10,000, but you said you are paying only 20,000 to your workers, but in line with this, you are also paying 10,000 more, which means you are paying the workers 30,000. Hence, we say the fringe benefits is an additional cost, one mark, that may result to cash flow problems. Then, when we look into the two salary determination methods, we have piecemeal. What does it entail? Piecemeal refers to the idea that workers are paid according to the number of items or the units they have produced. So this is going to be 2 marks for just writing piecemeal and 1 mark for the explanation. Then as we proceed, workers are not remunerated for the number of hours worked, regardless of how long it takes them to make the item. So this is considered to be max. Then when you look into time related, you have 2 marks over there, and then workers are paid for the amount of time they spend at work or on a task. That's why. Then when you look into the other part, workers with the same experience or qualifications are paid on a salary scale, regardless of the amount of work done. Then you get max for that. So this is about time, the keyword, but this is about the number of items produced. Then as we proceed, we then look into recommending the legal requirements of an employment contract. For a contract to be legal between the employer and the employee, the employer and the employee must both sign. That's number one. 2 marks at the end. The employer and the employee must agree to any changes to the contract. That's another one. No party may unilaterally change aspects of the employment contract. So this is to say, no party between the employer and the employee may change aspects of the contract without the other party. Then the remuneration package, including benefits, must be clearly indicated. And then another one is, it may not contain any requirements that are in conflict with and do not comply with the Basic Conditions of Employment Act. And then the employment contract should include the code of conduct and code of ethics for 2 marks as well. And then aspects of the employment contract may not be renegotiated during the what? Cannot be what? Or aspects of the employment contract can be renegotiated during the employment contract. Then, as we proceed, we look into now quality of performance. What should you know under quality of performance? You should know that we start with quality concepts. When we talk into quality concepts, you should know quality control and assurance. You should also know quality management and performance. Then when we look into the other aspects, you should know the benefits of a good quality management system. All this will be under quality concepts. So you should know how to differentiate the quality concepts for both quality management and performance and quality control and assurance, and be in a position to identify them from the scenario. But when you look into the benefits of a good quality management system, the focus should only be your way to explain or discuss the benefits of a good quality, or a scenario can be there and you are expected to quote from the scenario, because there's no heading here. But we're here because we are talking about the concepts. That's why the question is identify, because we have quality control is a concept and quality assurance is a concept. And therefore, we need you to identify the concept from the scenario. Then we also have quality of performance in terms of the business functions. When you look into the business functions, you will then be required to identify the business functions from the scenario. Remember, we have 8 business functions. You should know what they stand for, and then you should be in a position to explain how they contribute to the success of the business as those business functions. Now let's start with the typical exam question. Here you're expected to read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. You have exclusive clothing enterprise. Exclusive clothing enterprise is now a business that will deal with clothes. So Zinhle, the owner of exclusive clothing enterprise, She was requested to share ideas on how she maintained high quality standards of her products. She indicated that her employees are trained on a regular basis and time and resources are also used efficiently. Quote, two benefits of a good quality management system from the scenario above for 2 marks. Then 3.3.2, explain to Zinhle other benefits of a good quality management system for 6 months. So now let us see if you know how to go about this. So we will then say, what is the solution here? We check. She was requested to share ideas on how she maintains high quality standards of her product. There's no answer there. But when she says she indicated, or when the scenario says she indicated that her employees are trained on a regular basis, we see there to say the high quality standard is maintained by training employees regularly. And then we also see that time and resources are being used efficiently, which is part of a good quality management system or benefits of a good quality management system. So those are the two you are expected to quote. Then let us move. When we move, we then say the correct answer becomes she indicated that her employees are trained on a regular basis. That's 1. And time and resources are used efficiently. That's 2. Then we then move to explaining other benefits of a good quality management system. So the other benefits include the idea that effective customer services will be rendered and resulting in an increased customer satisfaction. Then productivity will increase through proper time management and the use of high quality resources. And then products and services will be constantly improved, resulting in increased customer satisfaction. And then the vision of business goals may be achieved. So that's how you deal with the benefits of a good quality management system. And then as we proceed, we look into now reading the scenario again and answering questions that follow. Here we look into Purple Enterprise. Purple Enterprise is a large retail business that provides what? Let's be clear. It provides a variety of what? Products. They prepare their own accounting records to ensure accurate tax payments, and Purple Enterprise responds quickly when one of their clients are not happy with the services. Then as we proceed, we then look into what? Identify the 2 business functions that are applicable to Purple Enterprise. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario. Then use the table below as a guide to answer 2.1.1. This is your table to guide you. You are expected to identify 2 business functions. And then 2.1.3, explain other ways in which business functions identified in question 2.1.1 can contribute to the quality of performance of Purple Enterprise. Let us look into the solution there. And then another one is explain the differences between quality management and performance. Now let us look into the solutions. Here the solutions is financial 2 marks and administration 2 marks. And then why is because the preparation of accounting records, it would be the responsibility of the financial function. And then when we talk about responding quickly to the clients who are not happy with their service, the client will first go into the administration of the business, or the administrators would be the first people to deal with the client who's complaining. Hence, it is their responsibility of contributing to the success of the business if they are able to deal with what? Clients who are not happy about the service. So those are the motivation. Then as we proceed, we look into explaining other ways in which the 2 functions can contribute to the success. The first one with administration, if the administration is able to do what now? To make sure that they do fast and reliable data capturing and processing, then they are contributing to the success. That's number 1. Then number 2 is they make reliable information available to management on time. That's also contributing to the success. But when you look into financial, obtaining capital from the most reliable sources is contributing to the success, and negotiating better interest rates is also contributing to the success in order to keep the financial costs down. So what you should know is that when we look into contributing to the success by each function, we are talking about how they can comply, how they can make the customer happy, and how they can reduce the cost, the financial cost for the business. And then that way they are contributing to the success. The differences between quality management and performance. When we look into those, you should be aware that with management, we are talking about the tools or techniques used to improve the quality of the product. So that's 2 marks there. Then when you look into quality of performance, this talks to the total performance of each department measured against the specified standard. Then quality management further says it can be used for accountability within each of the business functions. And then quality performance, it can be obtained if all departments work together towards the same quality standards. And then quality management, the aim is to ensure that the quality of goods or services is consistent and focuses on the means of achieving consistency. Hence, we are talking about the tools used to improve the quality of the product. But quality of performance, we are measuring the performance of all workers, and we also measure the performance of the product to say how is the product being reacted to by the customers. Hence, it says here, quality is measured through the physical product or the statistical output of processes or surveys of users or buyers of a goods and service. So we also check the buyers and the survey from the buyers to say, are the buyers happy or not with the product? So it also will help to check the performance of the business and the performance of the product. Then we look into the total quality management under quality of performance. Here you should know that we have TQM elements, total quality management elements, to say these elements, we have 5 elements, and from these elements you have continuous improvement to processes and systems, you have continuous skills development, you have total client satisfaction, you have adequate financing and capacity, you also have monitoring and evaluation of processes and systems. And then question type you have is that you have to identify these elements from a scenario, and you should discuss their impact. Discuss the element of each and discuss the impact of each element, which is their positives and negatives. Now let's proceed and look into other aspects. You will also have under the total quality management as a subtopic, you'll have the PDCA model, which will then be used to plan, do, check, and act as needed. This is used to improve within the business. So as we talk about improving, you will also be required to identify the PDCA model from the scenario and discuss the model. And then when you look into the discussing, we also look into the importance of a quality cycle. With the importance of quality cycle, we focus on explaining and quoting from the scenario. With the impact of TQM if poorly implemented, we look into explaining and quoting from the scenario. And with ways in which TQM can reduce the cost of quality, we also focus to say you should know how to explain and quote from the scenario. Let's show it now in a typical exam question. Now the direct question 3.1 says to you, explain the advantages of continuous skills development as a TQM element for 6 marks. And then 3.2 says to you, read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. You have Straydom Leather Limited. Straydom Leather Limited is a large business that specializes with what now? Specializes in the manufacturing of quality what? Leather bags. They often upgrade their production process to stay ahead of their competitors. Customers are always requested to provide feedback about their products. Now let's see the question. The question says, identify 2 TQM elements implemented by the Straydom Leather Limited. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above for 6 marks. Then as we proceed, use this table below as a guide. As a guide, this is your table. Then the other question is, advise the management of Straydom Leather Limited on the impact of TQM elements identified in question 3.2.1. Now we start with the outlining of the advantages of continuous skills development. Now, the advantage here is that when we are talking TQM, you should understand that we are talking about how a large business can implement these elements much easier. How can a large business, what is the advantage of a large business in implementing continuous skills development? Why is it easy for a large business? It is easy because large businesses have human resource departments dedicated to skills training and development. Then number 2, human resource departments or experts ensure that trainings are relevant to increase customer satisfaction. So that's why it is easy for a large business to improve the skills of the workers continuously. Hence, we say the advantages of continuous skills development as a TQM element on a large business. It is easy for a larger business to continuously improve the skills of the workers. Then they also have what? The advantage to say, as a large business, because they have more money or capital, they have the ability to afford specialized or skilled employees. Large businesses could also conduct skills audits to establish competency and educational levels of staff performing work, which could affect the quality of the products or processes. And then it may be able to hire qualified trainers to train employees. Because it's large, it has more money and capital. Then as we look into the other aspects now, which is to identify the TQM elements. Remember, we have two TQM elements. Look into this sentence here. It says upgrading their production process, which talks to improving the processes and systems in the business. And then customers are always requested to give feedback. Why? Because the business wants to make sure that customers are happy. Hence, we talk of the two elements implemented by a larger business would be continuous improvement to systems and total client satisfaction. Why? Because they often upgrade the production processes to stay ahead. That's one. Customers are always requested to provide feedback about the products. That's two. Then you get your 6 marks. Then we proceed to the other solution. Advise on the impact of these TQM elements. Let's advise over them. The positives of your continuous improvement to processes is that large businesses have more resources to check on quality of performance in each unit. And when we are talking about resources, remember in grade 10 we talked about physical resources, human resources, technological. So large business have more of those resources to check on quality of performance in each unit. Then they have enough capital, meaning money available for new equipment, to buy new equipment required for processes and systems so that they can improve the process and system. They have the capital, the money to buy new equipment or processes and systems. Then as we proceed, what are the negatives? The negatives are large-scale manufacturing can complicate quality control. And then another negative is that sometimes the improvement of processes and systems and buying new equipment can lead to this negative, whereby the business is risk of changing parts of the business that are actually working well. They are changing a machine that was working well because of the new technological advances, which can actually mean more cost for them, which can be a negative for a large business. Then as we proceed, we look into advising now on the other TQM element, which is total client satisfaction. What is the advantage? Large businesses use customer service to monitor customer satisfaction or analyze customer needs. So for the business to ensure total client satisfaction, they need to forever ask whether the customers are happy or not. And then this allows the business to continuously promote a positive company image, and then it may lead to higher customer loyalty, and businesses may be able to charge higher prices. And then another one is the negative now. When you look into the negatives, employees who seldomly come into contact with customers often do not have a clear idea of what will satisfy the needs of customers. And then not all employees are committed to total client satisfaction, meaning they will not want to check if customers are happy or not. Then we get to the end of our lesson. We looked into TQM, we looked into quality of performance, and now we are looking into the summary. Remember, we started with the structure and we looked into the main topics, and we have done a serious interpretation of section B and section C questions. Then now we looked into the activities as well to say these are the human resource activities, and I showed you how they can be assessed. Then we also had to deal with what? The quality concepts, whereby we're talking about the differences between quality control and assurance, and differences between quality performance and management. Then we also looked into the business functions to say they can demand of you to identify the following business functions from the scenario statement, and then after identifying the functions, you may be required to explain how they contribute to the success. Then we looked into the TQM elements to say you can be required to identify them from the scenario. After identifying them from the scenario, you can be required to explain the impact. That is the end of our presentation. So with that being said, thank you for watching this lesson. Hoping I made sense, and make sure that you repeat this lesson again and again and again so that you're in a better position to answer very well and interpret this question much better in an exam. All we want to see you doing well, and when you do well, we are happy. So make sure that you study on time. Remember, do not wait, because when you are waiting, you are creating now a situation whereby you'll be under pressure. So do not wait for the moon, because if you're waiting for the moon, you are waiting for the dark. And when you wait for the dark, it's difficult to work in the dark because you might be asleep. So make sure that you work when there's still time and when there's still light. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Keep well. Goodbye.